Two more. This one, Masuk, 2-0 on the road. Played the number one team in the state, New Canaan.
Now they go to the belly of the beast. Yeeps. Good luck. I cannot pick against New Canaan at their place.
Yeah, I too am going to go with New Canaan in this one.
3 days later.
Let's go!
That's for you, Masuk Nation. That's for you, Masuk Nation.
Number one in my poll still.
Yeah.
2-0 Blue Wave on the road to go to Windsor. We don't know the health of quarterback A.J. Robinson. John Manning stepped in and ran a Wildcat offense the rest of the way. They were able to beat Simsbury. If that's their game plan, that's not going to work against Darien.
3 days later.
Darien's got dudes. They got dudes, and then if you think those are the dudes, they got more dudes, and then if you think those are the dudes, they got even more dudes. I'm picking Darien in this one.
I say they show up, but if they don't have Robinson there, it's going to be very tough. They're my number one team. I cannot pick against them. Not until they give me a reason to. Sorry.
Don't doubt 860. Don't doubt 860. Y'all said they got dudes. We got dudes. We got more dudes than them. So we gonna come out here. Everybody that plays us up. Let's go.
1, 2, 3, 4. Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Beat Rider, your weekly dose of high school football in Connecticut. And I am your humbled host, Sean Patrick Bowley. With me, as always, is Pete Paglaga, who I assume would be equally as humbled, if not worse so, after just the drubbing we got last week in our picks. Once again, second straight week. Why do we even do this? I don't know. It's just to entertain you all, because clearly you enjoy it. We love the feedback, the taunting, the finger pointing, the where's GameTimeCT camera, where you at? We enjoy doing this. We enjoy being your humble foils, your bad guys, as it were. Pete, how you doing? What's happening? What a crazy week of high school football in week 3.
Yeah, the week started off as kind of like, I wanted to talk about something at the beginning of the show. And then, like, Friday night happened, and then it was like, who cares about that anymore? Because Friday night was just, I mean, look, at one point, we know the news already. This is not a surprise. 1 and 2 lost in the poll, but at one point, it looked like the top 4 teams were all going down at one point on Friday night.
Obviously, at the top of the show, you heard me and Pete just absolutely just getting crushed on our picks. And then, as you saw, number 1 and number 2 go down. Number 3 and 4 survive barely. And so a lot of other chaos going on at the top 10. But before we get started, remember to give us a like and subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. It really does help. We would thank you dearly for those. And so, getting us started, Pete, let's just start with number 1 going down to Canaan, the team we didn't think was number 1, but a lot of the voters did. A lot of voters saw fit to be the preseason top 10 poll. Listen, back-to-back state champions. Can't really argue with that. At Dunning Field, they're playing a Masuk team that, frankly, has done a real nice job against New Canaan over the years. 2-1 going into this game, but at Dunning Field against this juggernaut, which basically had its way with its first 2 teams, Maloney and Fairfield Ward. Now they got to play Masuk, a little disjointed last year, Pete, but certainly a contender this year. We didn't think this was going to happen. You were there at the second half. Take us through what happened with the Rams, and oh my God, Masuk?
So I get there right at the end of the first half, and I link up with our guy Dave Stewart, member of the GameTimeCT staff, and he kind of fills me in on what happened in the first half. First drive of the game, second play from scrimmage. New Canaan puts the ball on the ground. Ryan Putnam picks it up, goes 35 yards, touchdown, 7-0 Masuk. Later in the quarter, New Canaan fumbles a punt return. 2 plays later, Gavin Walker takes a 24-yard run into the end zone, 14-0. And that was it in terms of scoring for the game. Masuk locked down on offense. They went into that rock formation that we've seen them do in the past. I know that they've done it a while. I saw them do it against Bloomfield last year. But that was when their quarterback got hurt. This was more of like it's happening during the game. But I will say this, and we're going to talk about Masuk a little bit later. The defense for the Panthers was so impressive. Obviously, Putnam with the fumble recovery for a touchdown. Nick Fox, and we talked about Nick Fox on the show for years. They were all giving me the business after, like, he's the best linebacker in the league. And I was like, look, I know I've said some things, but I've said that for years, that Nick Fox is one of the best players in the state, so at least give me that. But the defense locked in. They didn't give New Canaan an inch throughout the whole game. You were kind of sitting there saying, New Canaan's going to score at least one, right? And then what happens if they score one? But they never got into the end zone. The Masuk defense played outstanding, limited Andrew Esposito, limited Luke Robinson, and the guys on the New Canaan offense. Esposito had 4 catches for 27 yards. Okay? New Canaan didn't take shots down the field. It was very interesting, but you kind of felt like they're just going to kind of slow it down, and that's what Masuk did. They ran the clock out. They played keep away. And as much as you might not like that as a fan of watching football, they still got the first downs. They still moved the chains. They still kept New Canaan's offense off the field. And that was really it. I don't know if you could win a state championship doing that and banking on, 2 fumbles early, turning them into 14 points, and then sitting on the ball the rest of the game. I don't think that's going to work the rest of the way for Masuk. I got there in the second half, so I didn't really get to see that much of Aaron Champagne, which I really wanted to see. He made one really good throw that I saw, and I was like, oh, man, this kid, he got big. He looks good. But we didn't really get to see a lot of the Masuk offense. They kind of just turtled up and wanted to take the clock out and beat the number 1 team, and that's what they did. Steve Christie was, if you know Steve Christie, very animated, very excited. You got to hear what he has to say at the end of this game. That's off the number 1 team to sit.
It's what we play for. We focused this week. We had great practices, a great energy. This senior class is just amazing. Hopefully, they're amazing. They played so hard. They fly over the field. We face it every day in practice. So for us, we know what it's like. But give New Canaan credit. That's a good team too, man. They ain't gonna lose many games, But we really needed this. We needed to really show the world and show ourselves because week 3, no one really knows who you are. Right now, man, we got some serious juice flowing. Ryan Putnam, number 5, he was all over the field. Billy Alvarado, all over the field. Guys flying, Luke Longo flying all over the field. Listen, I was impressed watching them, and I'm an offensive guy. But yeah, defenses win chips, and right there, I'm telling you, that was just like, wow. All I'm gonna say is wow. That was tremendous. Hey, that's for you, Masuk Nation. That's for you, Masuk Nation.
And I talked about both Ryan Putnam and Nick Fox. Both of them had great things to say about this game, but you could tell at the end of the video, Nick Fox just laid down on the turf as it hit 0. I think he was just absolutely exhausted after his defense's performance.
Masuk going to 3-1 over New Canaan since their classic, 50-30 victory in the Class L championship game in 2010. Remember, they also beat Masuk to knock them out in their run in 2017 on their way to the Class L final against Ham, which they lost. But, the New Canaan had another win over. Now it's 3. That's 3-1 against the Rams. Kryptonite. I don't know. What can I tell you? Masuk's defense, Pete, was great. Looked like they were great. That's remember the self-proclaimed best defense in the state. They really brought it this time. So that was the number 1 versus what was Masuk going into the game? Number 9.
8.
Number 8 going in. So I guess we should be too surprised, but that Masuk definitely wanted to let us know about that one after the game. And let me just tell you about my game up all the way up in Windsor, Pete, where I got to see the 6th ranked Warriors take on the number 2, my number 1 ranked Darien Blue Wave, and all the talent they had. The number 1 in your heart as well, Pete. We all knew A.J. Robinson from Windsor, the quarterback. He's been a great quarterback, probably the face of the team right now. He hurt his shoulder last week in that comeback win over Simsbury, and we weren't quite sure whether he was going to be able to go or not. And it was confirmed when we got to the stadium, Jack O'Brien Stadium, that he was indeed going to be out of the game. He's already in a sling. We don't know when he's going to return. So Windsor was already behind the 8 ball, as it were, and the 8 ball didn't even pick him. So Darien, meanwhile, my number 1 team, has all the pieces, quarterback, the receivers, the defense, but not the TV, apparently, because theirs was broken when they arrived at the field. But you know what? No problem. We're Darien. Just run out and buy one. I don't know where they went, Best Buy. They unpacked it right before kickoff and had it all set up. So They're ready to go. It's an efficient operation over there. Maybe the TV had a little bit of glitches because from the outset, Pete, Windsor just flat out took it to the vaunted Blue Wave defense behind a massive offensive line. John Manning, their great back, scored a touchdown, and though he hurt his shoulder and left the game after that drive, Windsor just moved receiver Kashmir Lewis into the backfield alongside Sean Adams, and Darien Pete just not stop them. They had over 300 yards on 49 carries, with Adams running for 130 yards on 17 carries, and Lewis, who's got a bunch of D1 teams, UConn, Delaware, among others, already on his doorstep, he rushed 24 times for 160 yards. His best play of the game, though, was an insane 74-yard pick six of roll-up that he weaved and bobbing throughout the field to go up 14-7, and then Adams had a 65-yard touchdown run that helped Windsor build a 20-7 halftime lead and 28-7 into the third quarter. Windsor's defense, meanwhile, forced 3 Darien turnovers, and Darien's defense started pointing fingers at each other and screaming at everybody as the margins started to climb higher. And it looked like even Windsor was going to go up bigger because of a kickoff return to start the second half, but fortunately for them, that got called back. Finally, Darien's talent and Windsor's just sheer exhaustion at that point, because remember, they're not even throwing the ball now. The Blue Wave got 3 straight touchdowns from Charlie Tom, Will Bartell, and then tied the game on a great 13-yard pass from Ben Rolat to Tom Herget, and they had all the momentum and the ball with minutes left to go in regulation. They had a chance to win this one, Pete, but number 8 in your program, Windsor, Dominic Jenkins, who was 5'10", if that, made a huge play on 6'7" Georgia Tech commit Kevin Roach on 3rd and 12, and a play that haunted Darien into the ensuing overtime as Roach limped off the field. In OT, Darien scored the first play and had a chance to win, but couldn't stop Adams on a sweeper on the left end, so we go to 2 overtimes. Windsor gets the ball to start. Adams scores again, his 4th touchdown of the game on a short run, but oh no, Windsor, the extra point, goes wide left. You got to be thinking there, after all that, the extra point going wide left. But Kashmir Lewis later said they had their guy, their kicker. They said, we're going to get this stop for you. And at 4th down, who's that again but Jenkins? This time, on the play that he got beat on to end regulation, the tying touchdown, he bats the ball away from Herget, and that is it. Windsor, what a huge win over Darien in double overtime, 41-35. Just an absolute great performance with their top running back and their top quarterback down and a bunch of other nicks and bruises. But Windsor gets out of there with a victory, Pete. An amazing job. And here's the guys who wanted to tell us all about it. How nobody in GameTimeCT, not even the 8-ball, picked them.
Hey man, don't doubt 860. Don't doubt 860. Y'all from the 203. Do not doubt us, cause we thump. As Coach Fee say, we thump. We gonna come out here. We gonna give y'all a show. We got players. Y'all said they got dudes. We got dudes. We got more dudes than them. So we gonna come out here. Everybody that plays us up. Let's go.
What did your team learn about yourselves tonight?
That we can overcome any adversity. We didn't have our QB1 going in today, but everybody stepped on every aspect of the ball. Even John going down, everybody stepped up. Me, Sean Adams, even our sophomore safeties. We have a young team right now, but we never gonna stop. It don't matter what's in front of us.
We really learned that we got that extra gear. You know, guys are exhausted, tired. It's a physical game. Guys are getting hurt, getting injured, but they're playing through. We just learned something new that we really are dogs, and we're the best in the state. Nobody can really mess with us.
These guys really push each other hard. You know, they lead each other. And even when Mr. PAT, they told the kid, keep your head up, we're going to be all right. You know, the attitudes are just outstanding. Their work effort is outstanding. So it's been a pleasure, you know, but we got to keep working hard. You know, it's not over. I'm not shocked. I'm satisfied. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not shocked. Our kids could play ball.
Yeah, I mean, we played a very terrible first half. We weren't physical. We kind of came off the bus slow. I'm not sure why. As a staff and as just like a group, we couldn't be more proud of the second half. We continued to fight. We played with energy. We played with passion. We played with physicality. They're an unbelievable football team on the road. And so our message to them was there's nothing to be disappointed in. Yeah, you lost the game. And yeah, some people are going to say, oh, you were the number 2 team this day. We thought whatever. We played our asses off. And I couldn't be more proud of what they did and how they responded and how they continued to fight.
So you heard a little bit from Kashmir Lewis. You heard a bit from Adams and Coach Rob Fleeting, who's just really proud of his kids. And, of course, you heard from Darien's Andy Grant, who lamented the loss of Roach late in the game that really kind of limited their options. But, hey, listen, hats off to Windsor. A great job to knock off, the team that I thought was a shoo-in to win the Class L championship. They might still be. But now Windsor, Pete, and Masuk, 2 of the top contenders in Class M, are now sitting pretty with huge wins over the 2 L contenders.
We were up and down the sideline at New Canaan, me, Dave Stewart, Dave Rudin, and anyone who would listen to me. I'm like looking at my phone. I'm like 21-7, 28-7 Windsor. I was like, there's no way 1 and 2 are going to go down tonight. And 3 almost went down. Oh, and by the way, 4 gave up 21 straight points and almost lost. Dave Stewart and I were standing at the middle of the field at New Canaan at the end watching the scores come through, saying, who are we going to vote 1 this week? What are we going to do? It was chaos.
Yeah. Hey, this is why you like these alliance games. They're good. They're good alliance games,
I like John Manning. I just want to put it out there. John Manning has jumped to the top of Pete's favorite player list. Anytime you can take the words that I say and give it right back to me, I'm all about it. That's someone John Manning didn't just look at the picks to see that no one picked him. He watched the show. He heard what I said about New Canaan having dudes and then more dudes, and then him to clap back and say, no, we got better dudes, or we got dudes. That's my guy. Just for the record, though, still 516. That's all I'm going to say. Still 516.
I'm 203. But listen, they have all those. They have the 860. They're very proud of the Hartford area code. Hey, listen, those guys did a great job. Manning was all over me. Lewis was all over me. All those guys, all those dudes, were all over me after that game. Listen, we love chaos. We absolutely love chaos. With all that chaos, Pete, we've got to take a look at the top 10 poll, which is frankly a mess. With all the number 1, number 2 going down, where do you start voting? Who's going to be number 1? So let's kind of take a look at this and see where we end up here. So number 10, of course, is West Haven, which jumps into the poll 2-1 after being knocked out from week 1 with their loss to Greenwich. They defeated Hall 36-12. Number 9 is Newtown with a nice 35-21 victory over Southington. Caden Cuomo was the hero this time. I said Newtown had a lot more guys than just Dayton Taylor, but he had a fumble recovery and a 92-yard pick 6 that delivered the Nighthawks to the comeback victory 35-21. They jump to number 9. Number 7 is a tie. The first is St. Joseph, which wiped out Bloomfield. As you can see here, it was no contest, a big game we were all kind of looking forward to Saturday. Bloomfield clearly not the same team it's been over the last 6, 7 years, or 8, 9, 10 years. It's having a rare down year for Bloomfield, but St. Joseph just absolutely wiped them out in that game to jump up a spot to number 7. They're now tied with Pete, the New Canaan Rams, falling all the way back to a tie with St. Joseph at number 7. Number 6, Darien, they lose to Windsor in OT. I guess people are a little more forgiving on the OT stuff. And they actually jumped New Canaan finally after starting the season in number 2. But now they are 6 to their 7. Number 5 is Candrelli, and the Tigers just rolled past Berlin. No contest there, as we expected. Number 4 is Masuk with 2 first-place vote, Pete. 14-0 over New Canaan. Number 3 is Staples, which got a huge scare from Maloney. They were up big, and then Maloney scored 3 straight to tie it, and they needed a late touchdown by Katie Goldman, his 4th of the game with 8 seconds left to survive 28-21. The Wreckers stay unbeaten. Number 2 is Windsor, which despite all of its injuries, The quarterback, we don't know what's going to be the situation with Robinson. They're going to keep him out as long as they can. But Manning with a shoulder injury. But the Warriors, all the way up to number 2. I can't remember last time they were this high with their 41-35 double overtime victory over Darien. And the number 1 team in the top 10 poll, Pete, is ya boys, Greenwich, with a 21-20 victory over Bishop Hendricken in an alliance game over at Cardinals Stadium. They did get off the bus. They did show up, so I'm really glad for that. But Pete, pretty interesting game. That was a game you were at originally before you headed over to New Canaan. What happened over there at Cardinals Stadium, and what can you tell us about the Cardinals? Looking pretty good. Yeah, the Cardinals look great. I mean, they look great when their backs are against the wall. They only scored after Bishop Hendricken did. It was 7-0, losing 7-7 tie. 14-7 losing, 14-14 tie. Losing 20-14, winning 21-20. They scored every time after Bishop Hendricken did, which was really fascinating. But let me tell you, man, MJ D'Angelo is a baller. He's a player. I think he's the real deal. And I really think that having him gives Greenwich something that maybe they were missing last year with their offense. Here's a kid, he'll put his foot in the ground, he'll go, he'll put his head down, he'll take hits, he'll get the fight to get to the extra yard. He's still coming along as a passer, but he played so well in this game, and that last touchdown was 1:15 left. It was a pass play. They changed it at the line. They saw something. He looked, wasn't there, and just saw an opening and was just gone. Right into the end zone, untouched. They won. It was a really good game. Bishop Hendricken has some dudes, some really, really good players. But Greenwich stepped up when they needed to most, man. The Hector Lopez kid is really fun to watch. He's only a junior. And then our guy, Pete, on the line, just holds it down, doing it since his sophomore year. Just one of the better, we're doing it since his freshman year, too. Just one of the better offensive linemen, obviously, in the state. But it was a really interesting one. I wasn't even supposed to stay. I was supposed to leave early and go to Staples, so that one turned out real interesting. But yeah, the block extra point gave them an opportunity to go down the field and win the game, and they took advantage of it, and they did it. And I don't think Greenwich last year would have done it. This is a different Greenwich team. This is a Greenwich team I like a lot, obviously. They're the number 1 team in the state now. How was Bishop Hendricken after that game? We talked a little bit about how there might have been some issues about when that game was going to be able to go off or not, or who's going to hosting it. There was discussion whether there was no issue whether they were going to play it or not, despite some we made a few tongue-in-cheek jokes, but it was an issue about where they were going to play. But it sounded like he was a pretty good dude. Yeah, Bishop Hendricken coach Keith Croft was awesome after the game. He talked about how his team was disappointed that they didn't win. He was disappointed. His coaching staff was disappointed, but he said he'd be remiss if he didn't mention how great of a high school football game it was. But here's a couple of quotes from Coach Croft.
Yeah, I just told my kids that we're crushed. And I don't think a lot of people gave us a lot of chance to come down here and play one of the best teams in Connecticut. But, our kids have heart, and that's what we did. And listen, it was a team loss, like I told them tonight. OD specials, everyone contributed to a 1-point loss, but at the end of the day, I'm proud of the kids. I'm proud of my coaches. And it's going to be a long bus ride home, but you know what? We got a huge game next week, and we've got some things to fix, but it's all fixable. Yeah, they have a reputation as one of the top programs in Connecticut, top 3, top 5. And, for a state of our size, that's a huge leap. But like I told the kids, we schedule it because I believe in our kids and I believe in our program. And we're playing teams from other states, and our kids need to compete with these kids for college recruitment. And it was a great atmosphere, and hopefully they'll come back up to us next year. And I know, listen, Connecticut football is right up there with some of the best in the country. And, we work really hard in our program, and obviously we've had a lot of team success, and these are the things that we need to do to continue to make our program better. Afterwards we said goodbye, and I was like, hey, safe ride back. I'll see you in 2 weeks. So they'll be back down here playing Fairfield Prep in a couple of weeks.
I mean, look, I like the Alliance. We can go over this all day. I like the Alliance games. They're nice way to start the season off. I don't even know if we're going to make this a feature, though, of your schedule. Let's make a league out of it, please. Let's do it that, because otherwise, what do we got? We just got a bunch of teams playing other playoff teams that we might even see down the road. And it's like, I don't know how much.
We need to get rid of the leagues. The leagues are basically useless.
Right now. And I know they tried to do that. They put it up to a vote. I don't know if that was exactly the right way of doing it in mid-season last year, saying like, oh, hey, by the way, got this yet another radical proposal here, and let's eliminate scheduling for all the leagues now. I agree. I've always said I like the idea of having, like, which the rest of the country does, having like playoffs based off like leagues, and you win your league, you go on to the playoffs and stuff like that. The district model, as they call it. But I don't know. I'm not particularly sold on the way the Alliance guys want to do it. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't like it, and I say it a lot, and they don't like that I say it a lot. But what are you going to do? I mean, a lot of these games are great, and they're great. But I mean, at the end of the day, how is this helping all these? A lot of these teams are going to be 0-3. You stack up some of these schedules, and you have a lot of good teams. I saw Xavier, good team, 0-3. You have a lot of these other teams, 0-3. They're already behind the 8 ball because you're giving them tough schedules. And meanwhile, you're giving teams that are struggling, you're giving them easier schedules, and now they're 3-0. So already now they don't have to really worry about it the rest of the way, because it's easy to get in the playoffs now. But you still have a lot of these teams. And granted, we had one get in at 4-6, but you still have a lot of these teams, though, Pete, that have now they got to work double and triple as hard just to get back to the playoffs. And they're probably a playoff team, frankly.
Yeah, but what's probably going to happen is we're going to get eventually some 5-5s and some 4-6s are going to get in over like 7-3s, and then we're just going to expand the playoffs again.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, what I will say though at the end of this, and I don't think we should talk about this anymore, but just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean they're wrong, and just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean that they're like they hate everything. Like, we just disagree. I disagree that Greenwich should not be playing a team from Rhode Island. That doesn't mean that I'm wrong or right. It's just my opinion, and the fact that I can't have an opinion is just whatever.
Anyway, so listen, Pete, we're looking back at the top 10 now. You'll go, I don't know what you did, but why don't we kind of show our votes here? Because obviously, you look at all the number one votes are all over the place. What do you think? I mean, where did you rank these teams?
When it came down to it, this is how I voted, Sean. I don't know. Do you want me to start at the bottom or do you want me to start at the top?
Yeah, you go top down. It doesn't matter to me.
So I was I threw it up on Twitter on Friday night. I said Greenwich is going to be on Monday. Greenwich is going to be the number one team in Connecticut and Rhode Island, and lo and behold, I was right. Greenwich is the number one team. I voted Greenwich number one. Wins against West Haven and Bishop Hendricken are very impressive to me. I was there obviously for the game last week. They are very talented. They have a lot of good players, and they are Greenwich. They're a program that can win consistently. Number two, I went with Windsor. I was so impressed with their win over Darien. Without A.J. Robinson, without John Manning, they kept fighting, gave it back. I mean, look, at one point, Darien did score 28 straight points. Okay, and Windsor did not give it up. They came back. They won. I went Darien 3. I know a lot of people jumped Darien down. I went Darien 3 because they played so close to Windsor. They were inches away from winning that game. I'm not going to hate on them that much, but I can't obviously vote them ahead of Windsor. 4, I went with Hand. Again, the Prep win is still so dominant. It's not looking that great anymore. Prep struggled against Trumbull. We'll see how Prep does against Rhode Island team in a couple of weeks, and Prep has someone else this week that's good. 5, I went with Staples. Still don't know that much about Staples. They didn't play anyone the first 2 weeks. And they almost gave it away against Maloney in week 3. 6, I went with Masuk. 7, I went with New Canaan. 8, Prep. 9, Newtown. 10, St. Joe's. 11, Maloney. 12, West Haven. 13, Bunnell. 14, North Haven. And 15, Manchester to round it out. The one I want to kind of talk about a little bit. Masuk, I had such a hard time finding where to vote. And I don't want to take anything away from what they did on Friday night. They knocked off the number one team in our poll. Number 2 in mine, but number 1 in our poll. The thing is, they got the lead on 3 mistakes by New Canaan that they turned into 14 points. And then they just basically took the air out of the ball. They had to get the first downs. They did. And they kept New Canaan off the field. And when they were on the field, the defense played great. It was just really hard for me. I didn't know where to put them. I feel like I don't think I saw the best Masuk team on Friday.
Pete, I'm going to disagree with you on that. I mean, I'm more of the record is what you say you are. I know your point, though. I mean, you don't win these things on style points, right? You don't win the state championship on style points. you have to win the games the way you can. Here's what I'm going to say, though. I'm going to say that defense, that Masuk believes so much in his defense to do a nice job. They also did a nice job on the offensive side, getting into a feature of their offense, which is rock. When they'll go to it whenever they feel like they need to go to it. And that is a feature of their offense. It's not like a gimmick. It's not like North Haven, not like doing like we're going to just play North Haven single wing for this game only. We're going double tights. This is what we do. Try and stop us. And Newtown couldn't stop them. I mean, they didn't do a whole lot of scoring either, but they also had a defense that stopped the team that torched Maloney in week 1, torched Fairfield Ward in week 2. I mean, Robinson, Esposito, nobody could put a cork on those guys. Masuk did. I got to give it up for them. And the Windsor game, I don't know. The Windsor game is very. They just really took it to Darien. If they had AJ Robinson there, do they change their offense a little bit? Maybe it's not as they don't give the ball. They don't run the ball so many times. But that was an impressive performance by Windsor's offensive line. I wish I had all their names in front of me, but they were just beating Darien up on the line of scrimmage. It was very impressive. And if you have an offensive line like that, you can do that to Darien. They're going to be big trouble. Here's how I did it. That said, here's how I did it. I'm just going to run right through it. Greenwich, number 1, first place. I thought they played great against West Haven, which is pretty good. And then Bishop Hendricken, that's a real nice win. And then Stanford. Second place, I put Staples in there. You're right about they haven't really played much of a great schedule, but hanging on to beat Maloney. Didn't beat him like Canaan beat hhim, but you know what? 3-0. I'll take it right there for the records. Number 3, Daniel Hand. They've just dominated so far. It takes them a little while sometimes, but once they get rolling, man, they are impossible to stop. Regardless of how Fairfield Prep has played since, the Tigers look really good. I'm putting Masuk at 4th place. The defense. You know what? The defense is great. I love the defense. Yeah, they played a little bit of keep away, but you know what? Now you're putting a lot more pressure on the defense to make some plays when they have to, and they made the plays when they had to. Number 5, Windsor, a little banged up for my taste. I don't want to put them at number 2 like the rest of the voters. A little banged up for my tastes, but again, maybe I'm kind of contradicting myself saying style. They did win that game. I'm putting them ahead of Darien, which is I have at number 6. Number 7, New Canaan. Number 8, Newtown undefeated. Number 9, St. Joseph. Number 10, Bunnell. They've looked real impressive so far. Haven't played a ton of teams that are great yet, but so far so good. West Haven back in my good graces. Maloney, man, I wish they could show up in some of these big games. They've been they get started real slow. Glastonbury had them kind of beat up a little bit early in that game, and then Jesus Martel saved them. And then this game kind of woke up a little too late to make that to knock off Staples. Manchester, we'll get to them in a little bit. 3-0. They look really good in defeating Xavier. They haven't won a huge game yet. They get one next, and that's going to be number 4. My number 14, Glastonbury, and number 15, I have Fairfield Prep. So that is my top 10. Again, like I said, you can quibble all you want. I don't say, I like to give Masuk a little bit more credit, maybe, and Windsor maybe a little less because that's going to be hard. I mean, if they can run that ball like that, though, man, they should just go. They should go to double wing.
You're giving more credit to the team that I saw, and I'm giving more credit to the team that you saw.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it is recency bias. Maybe it is.
It might be. And look, I don't want to take it away from Masuk because I know that they're going to get all about respect and all this stuff, and that's what they were screaming about on Friday. But
yeah,
their defense was phenomenal, and you cannot take it away from them. And I don't want to take it away from them, but it was just really hard. I had such a hard time. And look, we're going to play next week. Other things are going to happen. Teams are going to shuffle, and we're going to be back here discussing the same thing next week.
Yeah, no, we'll find out a lot about these teams as we go. I mean, I'm guaranteed this is not the way the top 10 is going to end up at the end of the year. Let's kind of move on here. There was a lot of great games on Friday night, but there were a lot of incidents kind of carrying over from last week. We had a lot of threats at schools, which caused a lot of postponements. This time, we had a bunch of fights that caused a bunch of postponements. There was Derby-Wilby, which ended in the third quarter. Derby was already beaten Wilby pretty bad, but some fights in the stands at Municipal Stadium. You had New London Thames River, also fights in the stands. That game got pushed to Monday after we started recording. New England was leading by a couple scores in that one, or 3 scores in that one, but some fights in that one. And then there was another threat at the NFA Ward game. that NFA ended up winning for their first game, but they went, it was some threats before the game, and they arrested the kid at the game. But just a lot of kind of leaves a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth otherwise. So that's like 2 straight weeks of just shenanigans off the field. None of it really having to do with football, just kids kind of behaving badly, which is, I give the cops, especially at Derby, will be a lot of credit. They just said, you know what? No mas. We have enough time here. Derby's up big. Let's just cut this short. I mean, you don't want to see it, but it was not a great scene.
It's just really disappointing because, a couple of years ago, we talked on this show, we talked on other shows, we didn't have fans at games. We were coming out of the pandemic, and they weren't fans at games. And a lot of administrators, a lot of coaches, us in the media, it was like, it's not a right. It's a privilege to go to these games. It's a privilege to play in front of fans. And nothing's guaranteed anymore. And we kind of learned that a couple of years ago. And I feel like maybe the people who are at high schools now or at that age, maybe they don't remember what happened those last couple of years. And it's really sad. It's really sad to see because Grasso Tech and Grasso Tech, Thames River and New London are playing without fans on Monday. I know that this is not going out. This is going out after a Monday, but they finished the rest of that game without fans. And we've seen that before happen in high school sports with them not playing with fans because of things like this. But you got one person or a group of people who can just ruin it for everyone there. And I know Jeremy Clark, the Derby coach, was not too happy about it. He tweeted about it. It just, I don't know, it just sucks to see. It really sucks.
Absolutely, Pete. I agree. It does. And I don't know what the answer is. It's, maybe you start not having any fans at games, maybe you can't handle yourself. There were some great crowds out there, so I hate to see that happen. But some of these places, maybe it's just like, guys, until you guys show you can behave. Otherwise, maybe it's time we do this at times that you don't want to go to it, right? 4:00 on a Saturday or something, which would be, too bad for the kids who play. They don't deserve that. So Pete, let's go look back at the Alliance week 3. Like we said, really good week for the Alliance games. It's basically, this is the bulk of it. You only have a handful left after this. I don't know what you get if you win anything on the Alliance. I don't know. Do you win an Alliance trophy? Do you get do we bring it to the leagues or anything? I don't know how that works, but certainly let's take a look at some of the results here from the second big week of the Alliance. Here's the overall scoreboard. ECC, Pete, the New London game is still outstanding, but they're 5-0. They're going to finish over 500. Well, if they lose that New London game, which they probably won't do, they're probably going to finish over 500 for the first time in this setup. The SWC 7-5 last week, really nice job. The CCC, Pete, probably with its best overall Alliance effort since joining a few years back. They went 15-14, but you add that to all the nice start they had. I think it was 8-3 the first 2 weeks. They're 23-18, which is well above 500. So nice job by the CCC. Obviously, Windsor being a big part of that. The SCC only 8-8, kind of muddling a bit. They're 17-19 overall, under 500. The FCAC, we sang their praises after week 1, and they didn't really show up as much in week 3 with Canaan and Darien both going down. So the FCAC 5-8 overall and 14-15. Sorry, 5-8 in week 3 and 14-15 overall. And then finally the CTC. Listen, ATI got beat by Platte Tech, and then they turn around, they beat Avon. I don't care what it is. ATI, nice job. CTC 1-3 though. With their other win, Platte Tech losing to Hartford Public, the independent in this grouping. They were formerly the CCC 1-0. So there you go. There's the standings. SWC with the best overall, 17-11, and then the CCC 23-18. ECC looking pretty good too for a rare time. So good job by them. That is your Alliance scoreboard. Now that we're through 3 weeks, it's time to take a look at who's left standing as far as unbeaten teams go. Many of them in the top 10 we've already talked about. Let's kind of run it down by class, who's left, to kind of get a picture of this as we head into the mid-season, because the more you stack up these wins, if you're still unbeaten by mid-season, there's a really good chance you're probably going to go to the state playoffs, thanks 6th division. But here we go. In Class LL, there are 4 unbeaten teams remaining. Greenwich, Staples, New Britain with a nice 36-33 win over Hamden, and then Manchester, who we'll talk about in a minute, 27-21 over the Xavier. Class L, Newtown 3-0, Naugatuck 3-0. They beat St. Paul. Amity's 3-0 after beating Lyman Hall 28-21. And Ludlow, lots to talk about with the Falcons, 48-14 over Notre Dame West Haven. Class Double M, it's wide open, I guess, as far as undefeated team goes. There are 10 unbeaten teams, beginning with Masuk and Windsor leading the charge. Bunnell is in there. Bunnell plays Masuk this week. We'll get to that. Hillhouse 3-0 after a nice 26-13 win over Conard. You got Newington, Weathersfield, easier schedules. They're 3-0. Same with Torrington, 3-0. Bethel, Nick Tarantino's crew, off to a 3-0 start. Cheney Tech and Northwest United also 3-0 in the CTC. They look like the top 2 teams in that league right now. Class M, 5 teams. St. Joseph, Hand, Brookfield, who we haven't talked about much yet, who I'm sure we'll get to. Rockville with a nice win over Granby Canton, 27-21. They won on a 4th down pass, batted down by Demare Thomas. Class SS, 6 undefeated teams. Killingly with a nice win. They defeated Sheehan. Hayden Allard, 29 carries, 231 yards, 4 touchdowns to rally Killingly to a 32-26 victory. They're unbeaten. Tolland also unbeaten, 3-0. Defeated Notre Dame Prep, which is winless, 17-14. Evan Johnson with a winning touchdown on that one. Then you got Wyndham, which ran all over Griswold, 49-36. They're unbeaten. Waterford, even though they lost Brady Sutton for the year, they are undefeated, 3-0 after beating Montville. Then you have Ledyard, whose big games are well ahead of its schedule. They defeated Bacon Academy. And Ellington 3-0, also in Class SS. And in Class S, Capital Prep, they're 2-0 with a massive 18-12 victory over Cromwell Portland to upend the Pequot-Saucus race. That should be really interesting. I don't know what else happened in that game. Couldn't find anything and didn't get anything from Capital Prep, so couldn't tell you who won that one for them. But elsewhere, Derby is 3-0. Waterbury Career Academy 3-0. East Catholic outlasted defending SS champ Barlow to stay unbeaten. They go into play Tolland Thursday in a pretty big game. And then finally, Pete, a game that you saw on Thursday, Ansonia, who else, 3-0 after beating up Waterford, a game we thought would be a lot closer than that. But, you know, Watertown going into Ansonia, and it's like the graveyard there. You go to Jarvis Stadium and you lose pretty badly when you face the Chargers. What happened there?
First of all, the grass was very long. I don't know who they were trying to slow down, but I got there. I'm like, this grass is a little long. Look, Watertown got the ball. They went right down the field. I mean, Gamby threw a really long pass early. They moved down the field, some runs, some quarterback runs. But, man, Ansonia's defense stepped up. They held them on the goal line, 4th and from the half-inch line. And they held a couple penalties later, touchdown Ansonia, and all of a sudden they were off to the races. It was like that was that one opportunity where if Watertown was going to compete in this game, if they were going to battle with Ansonia, they needed to score on that first drive. And the defense for the Chargers was stepped up. It was impressive to see. And then for the offense to turn around with their backs, with their shadows in the end zone to go with an 8 of 2 penalties, but 4 plays later, into the end zone, 7-0. Talk to me about Ansonia when we get to Thanksgiving. I mean, they're loaded. I mean, they're Ansonia, but we'll see when they get to Naugatuck. Watertown's got Naugatuck this weekend, so maybe if they bounce back, I think that changes some things. But right now, I mean, Ansonia's got a lot of good guys: Fogel, Whittle, Sorrentino. They got guys, and they're going to be really good. I think this was the best shot that anyone would have at Ansonia this year, other than Naugatuck on Thanksgiving, and they won 35-0. So that showed me.
That's the way it goes in Ansonia. The only team that beat Ansonia the last 12 years or so is Naugatuck in the NVL. So you haven't showed up in the NVL, you haven't arrived in the NVL until you were able to beat Ansonia anywhere. And Watertown not able to get it done, but hey, we'll see. Waterbury Career gets a crack out of Ansonia next week, so that should be fascinating. They gave them a little bit of a scare in the playoffs last year, albeit with a lot of guys out for Ansonia, so we'll see how they do. Pete, the game I went to on Thursday night all the way up in Manchester, I made those 2 Hartford trips this year. I wanted to check out Xavier, which is 0-2 going in, facing a 2-0 Manchester team. Xavier probably with a little bit of a tougher schedule. They lost Bunnell in the last seconds, and they also played Sheehan and saw their rally come up short there. This time against the Manchester team, it was back and forth all the way. Both teams tied after 21 with a lot of haymakers. Daryl Young for Manchester with the nice touchdown run, and then nice patch from Emmanuel Sample on a hip drill to put them up early. But Ian Pringle for Xavier answering in kind with a nice 30-yard touchdown run to make that a 21-21 halftime lead. In the second half, Xavier said, we like this Pringle kid. We're moving the ball well. Let's just drive the ball on the ground. Just keep marching. And they went on a 10-minute drive that, unfortunately for Xavier, ended up in no points, with Manchester making the nice defensive play. And in fact, that would be a harbinger of things to come for Xavier in the second half, as Manchester stopped them in scoring position 3 separate times. The second time Xavier got stopped, Manchester turned to Joe Mungavero, who hauled in a 70-yard touchdown pass from Sample. He took an inside bubble screen, went right up the gut, and scored on a beautiful play with just minutes to go. Xavier marched back down the field, and on 4th down from the 11, Daryl Young, who had the 2 touchdowns earlier, made a great play that you can't see on my footage because the ref was in the way. But trust me, he made a great play on the blitz, knocking the quarterback down, pressuring him, and throwing the ball short. Manchester 3-0, going into a pretty big game against Glastonbury this week. Their rivals, and since the CCC has been since they've realigned, they haven't played since. But Glastonbury usually has their way. I think the guys there said it was like 21-2 against Manchester over the years. But this Manchester team is pretty good. And here is Daryl Young and Joe Mangavero after the game.
4th down, they told me to go get the quarterback and make a play. And that's what I did.
Talk a bit about just being able to hold him now 3 times in the red zone like you guys did.
Hey, man, it's great. Like everybody said, we 2-0. We got to come out and be great every game. Now we 3. Now we about to be 4. We just going to keep going, man. That's it. We just got to hold it down as a team. That's it.
How'd you manage that second touchdown catch?
Seen the ball come out, and I was like, oh my God, I hope it's not a pick. And it went through his hands, and I just reacted. And I went to go score. Be great.
Offense is going slow, so we called one of my favorite plays. Lyman set me up great and took it all the way. We 3-0 right now. We're trying to keep this going into the bye week next week. We got a tough game at Glastonbury, so we're going to go hard, get a great week of preparation, and then we're in.
On Saturday, Pete, I went down to Norwalk to check out the Bears, who had took down Wilton the week before. And I wanted to see them against Glastonbury, team that hung tough with Maloney and then also defeated Platt in the season opener. We'll see about Glastonbury heading into this game against Manchester, whether they'll be worth talking about. And let me tell you, they absolutely were. Despite a crazy touchdown pass from Mason Rena, who picked up a fumble and then darted back the other way and threw over to Kevin Gordon for a 13-yard touchdown, Glastonbury turned on the Jets and exploded for 28-point second quarter to go on to win 42-14. Connor Finnery from Glastonbury was 11 for 14, 181 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he also scored on a 5-yard run in the big win for the Guardians heading into their game against Manchester on Friday at 6:30. They're one of the rare Friday games this week because it is the Jewish high holidays. So you're going to see lots of Thursday games and maybe a few Saturday games. So let's, Pete, with that game kind of on our radar, let's take a look at some of the other games of the week to look out for, beginning with Masuk versus Bunnell, Pete. That game should be fascinating. Bunnell hasn't played the schedule Masuk has yet. They haven't played a big-time team like Canaan, but that should be a barn burner at Bunnell Friday night.
Yeah, that one's circled, obviously, especially after last week. I think we're going to learn a lot about Bunnell in this game. Like you said, they haven't really played the schedule that Masuk has, so it'll be really interesting to see. One that stands out to me for sure is Thursday night, Collin and East Catholic. Both of them are coming in 3-0, and that's kind of like it's a Tier 4, I guess, CCC game, I believe. But they got some dudes over there, so that should be a good one.
Bristol Central, there actually are a bunch of Friday games, to be honest with you. Bristol Central plays Wethersfield 3-0, a 3-0 battle. Wethersfield hasn't had quite the schedule. Bristol Central had a nice win over New Milford in their game last week. Watertown at Naugatuck. Watertown coming off that loss to Ansonia, and maybe they can see how they measure up with the Greyhounds. Hand versus Shelton, with Shelton 0-3 for the first time since 1980. We figured out, thanks to our boss, Sean Barker. I don't know how much of a shot they have there against Hand, but you got to never discount those SEC games that Shelton got run over by East Hartford last week. Another fascinating one, North Haven at Cheshire on Friday. That should be fascinating. Norwalk got to play Darien, oh boy. And then Valley Regional, which just came off a big shootout loss. It seemed like every score in that game was from like 45 yards or longer. They lost to Coggins Co-op. Now Valley Regional's got to play Capital Prep, which is coming off this huge win over Cromwell in the Peak Lot. And then the big one, really, though, for me, Pete, is Fairfield Ludlow 3-0 versus going to New Canaan this time, 2-1. Saturday, 6 p.m. If you recall, Ludlow did not show up in the rain after going 3-0 last year, did not show up in the rain on their own field, and New Canaan just wiped the floor of them, and they basically no-mossed it after that. So that was, we'll see how the Falcons right now playing really well. They wiped out NFA. They wiped out Notre Dame West Haven. They've been playing great so far. What's going on with New Canaan? What's going on with New Canaan is, I guess, the big question. So that'll be a really interesting one. Any thoughts on that one, Pete?
I wouldn't want to play New Canaan this week.
Or Darien.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, with that all said, let's get to the shout-outs. Pete, lots of stuff that happened there's so much to talk about. Lots that happened that we just can't get to, so we want to acknowledge some of these top performers these games. Pete, I'll start us off. Pete, I'm going to give my shout-out to Amir Danley, his second shout-out of the year, who scored 3 touchdowns in a 26-13 victory over Conard. He has 12 touchdowns in 3 games already. He's playing great, and the Academics looking pretty good. They still have some big games down the road, but right now, 3-0 is not bad for that squad. Pete, your shout-out.
East Catholic's 3-0, if you didn't know. And my guy, Joey Montevello, caught the game-winning touchdown with 1:40 left to have them beat Barlow 26-20. He caught 9 passes in the game, another touchdown for 183 yards. East Catholic Tolland, undefeated Thursday night. Let's go.
Yeah, be
Sean,
there. That's a great game. Can't wait. Maybe I'll go, hopefully, one of those games. Next guy I'm going to go back to the alma mater, Amity, Christian Luciano, who I got to see play Harding week before. He looked really good in that game. He was great in this next game. He ran for 137 yards and had a touchdown on 9 carries and had 3 quarterback carries on defense in a 28-14 victory for George French's Spartans over Lyman Hall. Don't look now. Amity also 3-0. There's a lot of good guys on that Amity team. There's some big dudes that George has gotten to come out for the team this year. They're looking pretty good. If you look at Amity's schedule, don't look now, but they got a couple more wins, man. You can start putting them in the playoffs in Class L. Pete, you're next.
All right, we're going to stick with the SWC love this week because apparently we don't give the SWC enough love. But Jordan Pierce from Bunnell, he caught a 36-yard touchdown in Bunnell's 55-13 win over Middletown. But let's talk about this pick 6, right? He comes in, blitzes, freezes, jumps up, takes it right out of the hand. Give me that to the house for a touchdown. Bunnell, dominant 3-0 going into Masuk. Sean, who do you got?
Yeah, my last guy, I'm going to go to Milford in Foreign, which is off to a 2-1 start for Coach Garrett Walker. Zach Kyrgios from Foreign rushed for all 3 touchdowns, including 1 for 66 yards, as the Lions knocked off undefeated Northwest Catholic 21-14. Nice job, guys.
All right, and my last one, shout out to our boys at Bassick High School. Israel Prevail scored 3 rushing touchdowns in their 42-8 win over Bridgeport Central. It snaps the Lions' 29-game losing streak. Big shout out to our guy, Bassick head coach Desmond Lyman, who's a friend of the program. Guys, let's cheer this streak. There's 1. Let's turn it into 2, and let's keep going. Congrats on the wins, Lion.
Yeah,
Congrats on the win, Lions.
That's a great job, man. You know, Basic's always been a struggle, and now the torch has kind of been passed to Central, which, their losing streak goes back all the way to 2019. So that's rough for the Hilltoppers, who have not too far removed from their glory days of the Dave Catalina years that I got to cover. But good job by Basic. I love to see the smiles on their faces. Central will get theirs soon enough. Whether it happens this year, we'll see. But hopefully that they'll get theirs as well, because they're doing their best over there as well. So we appreciate you guys, and that will do it for this week's podcast. Pete, lots of games going on all over. We have another 3-day weekend of games: Saturday, Friday, Thursday. So it should be a lot of fun, and we'll call that a podcast. So thanks for joining us once again. For Pete, I'm Sean Patrick Bowley. This has been the Meat Grinder on Game Time CT.
Love you all.